You're familiar with the show, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am your alcoholic host, Raymond, and today I am joined with...
Hello, I am EJ. I am an alcoholic.
Hello, EJ, alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic. This is a pleasure to have you here today.
I'm happy to be here. Big fan.
Big fan. Mm-hmm. Oh, someone actually listens to this. This is that's cool.
Yep. I only have one episode that I haven't heard, so that's on the list of things to do today.
All right. Yeah. Let's see here. What does EJ bring to the table today?
Oh my goodness. That's casting a rather wide net and hoping for some good stuff. I'm not sure exactly what I have to offer. I just know that it was important for me, and still is very important for me, to hear other people's stories and any tips and tricks that they have. I'm about 20 months sober, which is, honestly, I did not expect to get that far when I came into this. So I'm still learning, but I also feel like I have a really strong sense of what it means to be sober and what it means to get through life this way, I guess.
Yeah, it's like I said in the beginning days of doing this, recovery gets easier, life just gets harder. It's obstacles, and we just got to learn how to jump those hurdles. But 20 months, getting close to that 2-4, 2 years, that's a good amount of 24 hours there.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels really good to say it out loud, because I remember my first meeting, getting numbers at my first meeting, and this one woman writing in the chat, because I started on Zoom, writing in the chat, "Hey, I only have a little bit more time than you. I have 90 days, but here's my number." And I was like, 90 days? That's amazing. I was like, don't downplay that. I was just blown away that this person had 90 days where they hadn't touched alcohol. That wasn't something that I could put into reality at that time. So 2 years is just exciting. It's nice after being full of shame and self-loathing, how to actually feel pride for the first time in a really long time. If you haven't felt pride for a while, it feels really good to feel it again. It feels really nice to actually not, pour me a drink. It feels really nice to just yeah, I'm doing this. And life is pretty great when you're sober, even though there's so much life happening and so much of it is on its terms. You don't know what's going to happen. And, I'm at that age now where my parents are getting older and my husband's parents are getting older, and things don't get easier. They just change. But I'm doing it all now without a hangover. And I know that sounds simple, but it's so big. So big. I spent so many mornings just how am I going to get through today? And not just how am I going to get through today feeling physically that way, but I always suffered from what I used to call the mental hangover. And I always said it was worse than the physical hangover, because no matter how much, throwing up or shaking or getting dizzy and whatever, all that stuff that was happening to me, the mental hangover, the guilt and shame that surrounded my drinking was so overwhelming that I don't know how I managed. And it's funny to me because, we talk about step one and how life had become unmanageable. And it took me a long time to get that because it's like, I'm managing. I have a job. I have a family. I have friends. I have an apartment. I eat 3 meals a day. I don't look like an alcoholic. Like, this is fine. I'm totally managing. What do you mean life has become unmanageable? But things are a lot easier to manage now that I'm not dealing with the physical stuff, the mental stuff, all the other crap. I can deal with whatever's right in front of me instead of whatever's right in front of me plus infinity.
Yeah, I mean that's step one. I mean, it's in retrospect. At the start, you're like, our brains play tricks on us.
Oh yeah,
and you start getting further away once you start gaining sobriety and doing the work, and you get down the road and you look back and you can picture your old thinking in ways, and it's just like, oh.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know any other way. I had been drinking since I was 12. So, my that cycle of, I'm a piece of shit, let me have a drink, and then I'm going to do things that don't align with my values and my morals, and I'm going to fill myself with shame, and then I'm going to drink over it. That cycle started very young for me. So I just thought that's how people lived. I just thought that that's how I thought other people were really good at making asses out of themselves and getting over it. Or they were really good at, I don't know, I guess just recovering better from blackouts than I was, or I was always blown away by people who could get really drunk, but not black out. How did they do that? That's an amazing, I used to do that when I was younger, but then that went away. The things that I used to think and how much more clearly I'm seeing the world. And I have to stop myself from beating my younger self up and be like, why would you think that way? I mean, I think you said it during a meeting. You said, keep it simple. And that's really stuck with me because so much of it is just keeping life so much simpler. And when you take out alcohol, it simplifies a lot of things. A lot of problems go away. A lot of the stuff that's out there and causing so many heartaches and fights and unhappiness and sadness and all that stuff. Take away the alcohol and you just have life. It's so much more simple.
Yeah, another alcoholic told me that, and I've heard it applied in so many ways outside of AA as well. And I mean, it seems generic, but when it comes down to certain things, keep it simple. And for me, it's just, I think once the alcohol's away, you're reconfiguring your brain on how to do things sober. And so our brains look for the most difficult ways to process things at the beginning. At least for me, it was. And it's just like, well, get some phone numbers and call other alcoholics and write things down. And I'm like, no, what's that going to do? That's stupid. And and so, and just the resistance. And it's just like, look, you didn't just come here for no reason. You're here for a reason. Listen.
Yeah.
Listen.
Listening is a skill. It's a skill. And I used to think I was good at it. And I think maybe I was good at it. I just didn't do what people said. I listened. I just didn't put the plan into action, I guess. But I mean, I listened to my sponsor. She's awesome.
Well, maybe it was just hearing the different.
Yeah.
You know, I hear what you're saying. Then the ones we listen to, we put into action of what we heard them say. I think that's
the advice. Yeah. Maybe actually taking the advice instead of just hearing it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's because of the chronic uniqueness for me. Like my situation's different though. My situation's different. Like, you don't understand. Like I drank because of A, B, C, and D, and it's different. So why would this work for me? And then through meetings, which I still go to every day, that chronic uniqueness got chipped away. And, you know, I always thought I wanted to be unique and different, but not in this way. So nice to know I'm not alone.
That's that self-centeredness right there.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, that's it's funny of how much that just the commonalities of some of the flaws as alcoholics, and we sit and talk to each other and we find all these commonalities, and it's just like, oh, I'm not so different.
No. And that's why we laugh, I think. I think it's so funny that I can like laugh about decisions I made that were so shameful and I'm so embarrassed by, but somebody else went through it. And that's so silly that we did that. Alcohol made us do these things. That's so wild to me. Like, I don't know. I just think about this. I don't know why I'm thinking about this one time, but when I was younger, I was bartending and I was friends kind of with this bartender, and we got wasted one night after work and then went and did a bunch of cocaine, which was unfortunately a large part of my story. And she ended up saying, listen, I can't go back to my house. It's too far. I'm going to come crash at your place. And I was like, okay. And then she's like, but here's the thing. When I'm this drunk, I always piss the bed. I always piss the bed. And I was like, oh, why do you have to come to my house? Like, why do you have to come to my house then? And she's like, and, you know, we'll just share the bed. And then if I pee in it, like, I'll just put a towel down. And I'm like, but you're going to ruin my mattress. And like this thought, like this was a conversation I was having with somebody. Like, if you come to my house because you can't make it home, please do not pee on my bed. But I'm going to pee in your bed. But I don't want you to. But I need to sleep there. Like, who has these conversations? Who has these things happen? I ended up sleeping on the couch. She slept on my bed. She did not pee in my bed, which is very good. But, you know, could have. But that was like a typical night. It's ridiculous. Who lives like that?
I'd have gave her a trash bag and be like, here, use this as like a half sleeping bag. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I was really far gone, so I didn't have any way of, I think I was just like, just sleep there and I'm going to sleep here and tell me if you pee in the bed. But yeah, it's funny that we can laugh at, alcohol induced bed peeing.
Well, we do now. I mean,
right now.
Laughter's I think laughter's another tool or natural remedy for us, and it's a good way to cope with some of the things. I mean, I'm not proud of a lot of the actions from the past, but I can't sit here and beat myself up about it. I try to find the humor in some of the stuff.
Right.
Some of the stuff's inexcusable, and it's a little bit harder to find the humor in it, but it's, man, I was so silly back then, or I can't believe I thought that way, and just, yeah, it's just funny now.
It is.
It wasn't funny then.
And I think that it's interesting that we're talking about humor, because part of my whole identity was that I was like the funny drunk girl and, up for anything and really silly, as you said, silly. And that didn't go away. The drunk part did, but I'm still silly. I'm still laughing at ridiculous stuff, and I'm still very clumsy. And I'm excited about this. And I know that sounds strange, but my husband used to accuse me of being drunk when I rarely wasn't, because I'm clumsy and I would like fall over myself or like run into something. And I'd be like, I'm not drunk. I'm just clumsy. And now that I've been sober for almost 2 years and he sees how clumsy I am, he's like, you weren't drunk that one time. No, that one time I wasn't. I'm just clumsy. Anyway, it didn't take away that part of me, that fun, silly part of me. It just took away the regret from taking it too far and, embarrassing myself, essentially. Yeah.
Someone who drinks takes things too far? I've never heard of that.
Always.
Yeah, I've kind of noticed that. That was one thing when I drank. I'd have a baseline of craziness, but you add alcohol, it's like, oh well, nothing's gonna stop me now. As soon as that tank started filling up, and it's just like the dumb shit ensues, and it's okay. You can do this. There's no consequences for this. You're not gonna piss anyone off. Oh, this is funny. Oh no, it sure was not funny.
Yeah, I always have been a very adventurous person, but I've also always been really full of fear, and alcohol took the fear away. I always wanted to be the person who was like game for anything. Like, I'll jump out of an airplane. I'll do that hilarious prank. Whatever it is, I wanted to be game for it. But I was so full of fear that I couldn't be that person. So I'd add alcohol and do that plus whatever else sounded like a good idea at the time. And honestly, I feel incredibly lucky. So lucky that I did not die or hurt myself more than I did doing some of the pretty insane, intense stuff I was doing when I was drinking. And I have a daughter now, and I think, like, what would I do if I knew that she was putting herself in the situations that I was putting myself in? and it's terrifying to me. It's terrifying to think of her doing to herself what I did to myself. And that's really key is, putting the perspective in there. Why do I care about and love so much this other person? And why do I neglect myself so much when I'm her caretaker and I'm the one who's going to help her have the life that I want her to have? So, self-care has been a huge part of my journey because I had none of that love for myself. But, my daughter, if I treat myself with a little bit of the love that I give her every day in forgiveness and patience, then I got a shot. Maybe.
Yeah, I think we're harder on ourselves than we need to be. And I feel from talking to other alcoholics, we learn how to really cope with that and move past those issues. You started drinking at a young age, and so you have 20 months. What point was it, I can't do this anymore?
Well, first, long story short, I was having some problems with my marriage, mostly due to my drinking. And I was drinking more and more and more. And then I thought that having a kid would fix it. So I got knocked up, and on purpose from my husband. And
thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. Well, in my world, you have to. And for those 10 months, because it's 10 months that you carry a child, not 9, I was sober. And I hated being pregnant. I was happy mentally with it, but oh my God, physically it was the worst. So, I mean, like I was so tired and I was throwing up all the time anyway. So I remember I smelled my husband's whiskey at one point when I was pregnant and I instantly threw up. I was, nope. Like my body was like, keep that away. You're having a kid. So I thought I was fixed. I thought once the baby was born, I had just spent all these months not drinking, and I'm not an alcoholic because I did that. So la-di-da. I was just drinking too much before because things were a shit show, not because I'm an alcoholic. And then started just, having a glass of wine here and there, responsibly, of course, with my new baby. And then it started to be if my husband was around and I knew that she was being taken care of, then I could start sneaking. Because if anything were to happen, he was there. Or if that wasn't the situation, if somebody else was there who was responsible, then I could do whatever. And then it grew into, if my baby is asleep and my husband is out, because at the time he worked at night, I could drink then because she's sleeping and he's out. And he would come home and I would be passed out and he wouldn't know. I would think that I would have been drinking the entire evening while our baby was asleep. And then he had a sense of it. He definitely, it smelled like alcohol. I looked like hell. It was bad. But I would try to power through without showing my hangover and all that jazz. And, I would hide it in these ridiculous ways. Anyway, essentially I got caught and my husband threatened to leave me for the millionth time. And this time it was different because my daughter was involved. And I realized that I was the drunk. He wasn't. And so they weren't no court was going to give me my kid. So I went to an AA meeting that morning, and I actually wanted to be sober. It didn't take. I had to do a few months of going regularly to meetings. I sometimes would drink during them and pretend I wasn't, but I would go. And then like the last relapse I had wasn't even that significant. It was just time. It was like, I think it wasn't even alcohol. Like I had been done drinking. I was like, I'm done. I feel like shit. And I just needed to get fucked up. And I think I like had some Klonopin left over and some NyQuil. And I like just like drank a bunch of NyQuil and took some pills and was fucked up. And my husband was like, "You're drunk." And I was like, "No, I'm not." I'm not. See, I win. Anyway, and it was a big fight and it was really bad. And I think I had a moment of clarity where I was like, NyQuil? Are you serious? Like NyQuil. That's what it's going to be. It's like drinking the imitation vanilla. Or the cooking wine. It's for me, it's what I feel is like desperation. And so when that happened, that's when I started taking it a little bit more seriously. Because that was pretty sad to me. Just get me fucked up.
Yeah, that's the first time I heard the NyQuil. That's but it shows how serious this is. The how we try to rationalize things and just like, oh yeah, this doesn't count. but I kind of want to like wind back because you mentioned your husband's not a drunk, and you mentioned something about the time you were pregnant, you smelled the whiskey and it made you sick. Mm-hmm. So how's that factor in like now? I mean, does he still drink every now and then, or?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because I feel like, especially before I started trying to be sober, this was a huge like point that I had to make, which was, you drink too. It was so important for me. Like when he would accuse me of being an alcoholic, I would be like, but you drink, you get blackout drunk, you do these things. And here's the thing, I'm not going to diagnose him. Because I don't think anyone can really properly do that for somebody else who's not a doctor, but he doesn't drink now. He might go out with friends and have like a couple beers once every 2 months or something. But one thing that I really needed for him to understand was that I can't have it in the house. He really wanted to have a liquor cabinet. We always had a liquor cabinet with like good whiskey, nice wine, couple bottles of gin and whatever. And yeah, I know that you want to come home and have a drink at the end of the day, and that's your right. And I'm not asking you not to do that. I'm saying that I'm going to sneak it because I would sneak it. I would 100% sneak it. And especially when I was in the beginning of this sobriety journey, because I couldn't get there right away. And there was this alcohol in the house and it was just sitting there. And like, I knew that he was measuring it. I knew he was marking the bottles. So I would drink what was left in the bottle and then go to the store and get another bottle and drink down to where the mark was on the first bottle. Yeah, stealthy. Isn't that really stealthy? I thought I was so sneaky and smart.
I think it's pretty clever.
Do you know how drunk you get though from that? If you have like a bottle of whiskey, you're drinking a bottle of whiskey, a whole bottle, because you're drinking what was left and then down to where it was.
Yeah, that's not healthy.
No, but it was the only way I could be sneaky and get away with it, I thought. Justification, right? Anyway, so now he doesn't really, we don't keep alcohol in the house. Even though I'm feeling really confident, I don't want the temptation. So, and honestly, because he's used to not drinking, it's not really an issue for him anymore, which is nice. Like, he feels better. He's always telling me how much better he feels that he doesn't drink anymore, really. So when he does, it's like a little treat for him and he's fine. Good for him, normal people.
Well, what's normal, you know?
Yeah, you're right.
But no, I brought that. It's just like, you know, at least you're honest about it when you brought it up. And that's a big thing. A lot of people at the beginning have problems being honest with themselves and figure, you know, with other people. And then that's how we start setting ourselves up for these traps, and boom, they fall down that hole, and here we go again. Then,
yep.
So, I mean, that's good. You're honest, and you're wanting this to work.
Eventually, I mean, at first,
yeah.
Originally, I wanted him to keep it there so I could sneak it.
We got to that point.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because there's this moment at a meeting that I always think about that I think might have been my turning point for like wanting to sneak alcohol and not wanting to sneak alcohol anymore. Like actually wanting to put myself like fully into recovery and kind of wanting to and not wanting to. And this woman was talking, she was an older woman who had like 3 grown kids. And she said, you know, to any moms out there, like, you think you're doing this for your kid and that's great, but do it for yourself, because the guilt that you will feel, that your older self will feel. And she's like, she was speaking personally. She's like, even though I'm a good mom now, I wasn't the mom I wanted to be when I was drinking. And that's what I can't forgive. My kids can forgive me and they can get over it, but she can't forgive herself for how she was as a mom. And being a mom to me is probably the most important thing in my life. And so if I'm going to feel guilt and shame over that forever, that's not going to be a good life. That's going to suck. That's going to be something I don't want to live in. Like, I don't want to live that life. And I like life. So I want to live it.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I had issues in the beginning was put my sobriety first. And I'm like, well, I am. I'm not drinking right now. I want everything else fixed right now. Everything. I don't want to feel this anymore. I don't want this. My sobriety is first. No, listen to what I'm saying. I'm like, okay. But it was at that turning point when I actually listened. Mm-hmm. I didn't just hear what they said. Where it started making a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Listening is key.
It's like, no, I don't want to listen. I feel like shit. I want to feel better now. I want everything to be better now.
Yeah. And I think in early sobriety, it's important to give in a little bit to the urge of making yourself feel better, because, I mean, at least for me, like I was so used to pressing that escape button automatically. anytime I felt like uncomfortable. And so, in early sobriety, it was like, how can I feel comfortable right now? Oh, I can eat a bowl of ice cream. I can go for a walk. I can take a bubble bath. I can, whatever it is, do this thing. I can watch this show on Netflix that I wanted to binge forever. Things that I personally take. I'm like, oh, that's a me thing. I don't have time for me stuff. I don't have time for like self-care stuff. But if it's between that and drinking, you gotta take care of yourself and not drink. So, especially in the early stages, I think it's okay to indulge in all the other things but alcohol. for me. And of course, other drugs like NyQuil.
Yeah, no NyQuil. Mine was peanut M&Ms, which I've started. Now that I'm a little bit more I can think a lot clearer now and understand how this process works. I've started pulling back on the sweets now, so learning how to control that way I'm not.
Yeah. I told my sponsor I wanted her she doesn't do sugar. And I was like, I kind of want you to sponsor me for sugar too, but I don't want you to sponsor me for sugar because my life has not become unmanageable due to my sugar intake. So I'm not there yet.
So let's start your sobriety path here. Which path did you go with this?
The first meeting I went to, all my meetings until like a few months down the line were all on Zoom. Because I became sober during the pandemic, obviously. So the first meeting I went to, I had to find a meeting. I just went to one. It was called Back Porch Meetings, and it was a traditional meeting. I believe they're based in New Mexico. And even though it was traditional, I went there and I was in that state that newcomers are in when they go to their first meeting. I was, my eyes were puffy. I was crying. I was still probably a little bit drunk from the night before. I was shaking. And I kind of thought everyone would be miserable at this meeting because isn't that how everyone feels when they're getting over being drunks? And the woman who was chairing was drinking coffee and sitting on her porch, and she was so serene. She was so zen, and it was morning and she was happy, and it was earlier there than on the East Coast where I am. So it was like early morning, and the topic was gratitude, and all these people were happy, and I'm sitting there like the worst that I've ever felt, and it kind of blew me away. And I remember I was done with the meeting, and my husband was like, "How was it?" And he was still mad at me from the night before, and I said, "It was good. I want to go to another one." Because I actually felt hope in that moment from that meeting. The second meeting I went to was Oh My God. And
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, you've heard of it. That was my first secular meeting and my second AA meeting. And they hooked me, and I've been doing secular AA ever since.
So what drew you for, you went to that traditional and now you're doing secular AA. I mean, is it, what's the, is there a reason you just do the secular over the traditional, or vice
Well, yeah,
versa?
I mean, I'm not a religious person, and one thing that was keeping me away from AA was that I like what I heard about it being so religious and all of this stuff. And then, or at least, I mean, I said that's what was keeping me away from AA. But then I actually was going to a therapist at the time, and he was like, there is secular, and I believe you can find them online. And I was like, okay. So once I knew that was a thing, I knew that I was going to go into secular AA instead of traditional. The first meeting I went to was traditional because I couldn't find another meeting at that exact time when I needed one. But as I said, it was fine. I ended up writing them an email like a couple of weeks later, just thanking them for being my first meeting and, letting me know that AA was not a miserable, scary place.
Well, it's good you found hope that first meeting you went to.
Oh, yeah.
I've tried AA in the past, and, kind of the same thing. I'd leave the meeting and start drinking.
Mm-hmm.
This time when I started, I was just like going to the meetings. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to meetings. I'm like, I still don't get it. I still don't understand it. And they're like, stick around for fellowship. And I'm like, well, why isn't anyone talking to me? Why isn't anyone paying attention to me? This doesn't make sense. It's at the beginning. I mean, this was because I was 60 days white knuckling, whatever you want to call it. Before I went to AA for this stretch here, the prior ones I was just doing it just to appease others.
Yeah,
and I'm just like yeah, whatever. And but that's awesome. Your first traditional one, you found hope.
I did, and they read the Lord's Prayer, and they did the Serenity Prayer, and I just kind of, I mean, I knew it was going to be there, so I just kind of sat there for that part, because all the stuff in the middle was what I needed. That woman who reached out to me and said, hey, I only have a little bit more time than you on 90 days, but here's my number. I never called her, but that really stuck with me. Like, she is 90 days and I can call her, and that's cool. Like, she is 90 days. She can do this. And if she can do 90 days, then maybe I can. So just getting that hope. And I remember at that meeting, somebody was talking about like how in this life, all of these things happen, and how in their old life, all these bad things would happen. And I was really excited to think about a new life, because my old one was pretty messed up at that point. And I wanted something new. I wanted something better. And the idea that I could start over was what I got. There was almost like a reset button, like a do-over button that I could push by being an AA. And you almost do get to push that button. I think that's what helps with the steps, is that, you can make amends and move forward. And even if you can't, you can just recognize that it's done and it's over, and there's nothing you can do about it. And honestly, it's kind of amazing to think that in the future, it's just up to me doing the right thing. Like, that's pretty cool. Like, again, it's simple. It's very simple. But if I just do what the right thing is, and at the end of the day, if there's any question, I can look back at it and take inventory and make amends if I did mess up, because I certainly do. And then just go forward. It's a much better place to be.
Oh, I agree completely with that. Now, you continue with the secular AA. Sounds like you've worked some steps. Have you worked all the steps, and which steps did you work?
I worked all the steps. I did Jeffrey Munn's 12 steps, which are agnostic steps. My sponsor is, she's amazing. She is 42 years sober, I believe. Oh, Julia, I'm so sorry if I got that wrong. It's 41 or 42. And she, said to me, like, I know you don't want to do traditional steps. Here's a bunch of different versions of the steps. Take a look at what you like. And that's the one I liked. And we went through them. And it was, I didn't know at the time, and I think I talked about this last night at the meeting that we are both in. I just did them. I didn't really know why I was doing them, but I did them. And now that I've done them, I'm like, ow, that's why. Because now I can go and do these things every day. It's like the steps are practice for how you're going to live in sobriety almost. All right, so the first thing is admitting that you're an alcoholic. So admit that you're an alcoholic and that your life has become unmanageable. Yada, yada, yada. Step one. Okay. And now I can take that step now that I've done that step, and every single day I can say, I'm an alcoholic. And just remembering that, and that I can't just have a drink and be okay, is a tool that I use on I'd say at least a weekly basis, if not daily. So the steps are essentially just tools now that I have. I had to practice them once. I had to give them all a shot and work through them to see what it felt like to live that way. And now that I have these 12 amazing tools, I can live my life by my values, which was something that I had 100% lost in my addiction. So yeah, it's just, the steps are just practice. It's just practice. And I think if it would have been worded to me that way, I would have been like, oh, okay, I can practice stuff. I just don't like to put work in. I don't like to work. And but I like to practice because practice makes perfect. So if someone were to say to me, like, here are 12 things that will keep you sober, and here's the first thing you do. All right, you did it. Great. Now you can keep doing that forever. All right, now here's the second thing you do. Okay, you did that. Great. Now you can keep doing that forever. Keep doing that. Now do the third thing. Then you keep practicing these things, and then you can teach somebody else how to do them. And then it just becomes like how you live your life. Then sobriety isn't so difficult anymore. It's actually a lot less difficult than drinking is.
So, yeah, teaching someone else. Are you sponsoring people now?
I am.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing, I get asked a lot with some people I do talk to, and they're like, well, how do you do that? I was like, well, I don't know. I just do what my sponsor did to me. And this isn't nothing new, but what is your approach with that? Do you remember when you first started working step 12?
I just started a few months ago. So this is all right where I am. Honestly, I hope to someday be the sponsor that my sponsor is for me. I certainly do not utilize her enough. And that's on me, but she's there, and she's always been there. And she, her wisdom is just, her perspective is so clear. Her perspective is so clear, and she's so kind that when I talk to her, everything's okay. So that's what I want to be. Now, I don't know. She has 41 years or something of sobriety, and she's been working at this very hard, and she's sponsored a lot of people, and maybe someday I'll get there. But right now, I think it comes down to the individual person and really listening. I think listening is a huge part of sponsorship. I think my job is to be there because it's really, really fucking hard to be newly sober, and not just be there, but also, I don't know, I'm not a tough love person, but if that's what the person needs from me, I have to be prepared to give it. It's really, every case is different. Like the title of this podcast, right? Many paths. There's many paths because there are many individuals. And like, for instance, I'm a celebration drunk. When things are really bad, like I would drink, but I would just cry and it would be terrible. It would really just get horrible when I'd be a celebration drunk, because that's when it would keep going and I would get like blackout and bad things would happen. And things have to be tailored to me differently than people who drink in crisis, because that just isn't my problem. So if I have a sponsee who drinks during crisis, I have to come at it from a different perspective than somebody who drinks from a celebration point of view. So I think it's important to listen and to tailor the recovery to the sponsee. And I think my job is to just take what my sponsor, Julia, has taught me and do the best I can do. And just, put as much love into it as the person needs, because it's a labor of love. And it's also a selfish labor. It helps me so much. I am getting so much out of sponsoring people. It's hard because when they relapse, it's, what am I doing wrong? But that's when I call up my sponsor and she talks me through what I should do next.
You realize you're not doing anything wrong when the other person drinks.
I know. That's old thinking, right? That's that alcoholic thinking of like, everything's my fault. Like, oh, poor me. Everything's my fault.
Yeah, because I'm just like, well, this person's not calling me back. They're not doing this. They're not doing what I'm told to do. And I'm just like, and luckily I caught on early enough to understand I can't, it all goes back to square one with us. We can't control what other people do. We control what we do. And we got to accept that. We can't, the what is that? The Serenity Prayer, Oh yeah. And it's just like that was the biggest thing for me to get over and realize. But once I started actually realizing that and applying it, my general life started getting better because I just let everything affect me. And I'm just like, and it was because I couldn't control things.
Yeah.
But if I could, I don't understand how we get our heads wrapped around thinking everything's in our control, and it's not. And it's just in other people's actions and everything. Oh, yeah. It's just like, yeah.
It's so much bigger than us. It's so much bigger. And like, to bring up my sponsor, maybe not for the last time, but we'll see. She talks about how bees, when they're buzzing around the hive, they run into each other sometimes and they get stunned and then they just go on their way and they keep going. And if I can think about that when it comes to the stuff that really used to bother me, that other people did that it was like my fault, or like something like if I ran into somebody, it was my fault. And like, what did I do wrong? And that was annoying. And why did they react that way? I just ran into them. I didn't mean to. I'm just clumsy. Oh, why am I so clumsy? Why is this happening? Blah, 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 blah. All of this stuff. As opposed to, oh, I ran into somebody. Let me go this way. Let me shake it off and go this way. It's a lot simpler.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Oh, goodness. Let's see here. I like how you brought up celebration drinkers. You bring up crisis drinkers.
Mm-hmm.
But what about, I just drink because I like to drink?
Well, that's what it comes down to, right? It's just for me. And I didn't just like to drink. I drank. It didn't matter why. But now, where I am now, I'm recognizing that I'm the celebration drunk, because when I'm carefree, that's when I don't have any cares. So I can drink because who cares, right? Like that's where my stupid thinking comes in. You know, if it's a crisis, it's like, okay, if I drink, it will make everything worse, and I can't make things worse. So how can I make this better? I can put myself in that frame of mind. It's when I'm having a great day and the weather is beautiful and I'm with people who are awesome and they're having so much fun and we're all having so much fun, and I don't have any responsibilities right now, and I don't have a car to drive. I don't have anything that's going to get in the way of whatever fun I want to have right now. That's the trick, because it's not going to end up being fun. It's going to end up being a shit show. But that's where the stinking thinking comes in, because that's what will get me, if anything. I mean, God, hopefully nothing will ever get me again. But that's my trigger. That's my worry.
Yeah, I've heard the everything, when everything's going good, that's when it goes to shit. Mm-hmm. I've heard that one so many times, coming to these meetings and listening to people, and it's just like, everything's good. I got this.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, there's nothing messed up about the situation, so let me just mess it up.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
It's a big, big thing in my life.
Yeah. So, let's see here. What would you suggest for that person? What message would you try to convey today for that person?
I think the message that I would like to convey is that things become clear after a certain amount of sobriety is obtained. And oftentimes, at least for me, I did not know why I was doing stuff or why I was being told to do stuff, but now I do. But it took me until I finished like the steps and started putting them to active use in my life until I understood this is why I'm doing this. So my advice is, if you don't get it, don't worry about it. Just keep going. Just keep going back and just do the work. Just do it. Just do it. And you can take your time, but just do it. And then when you're done, it will make sense. But it might take some time, and that's okay.
I like how you kept that simple.
Oh yeah.
Because, well, the reason I like to say that is, we you get time being around and you see another Raymond or another EJ or any of the other people we see coming into these rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking for that help. They're looking for that connection. And we go through these, it's like a soapbox. Some people get on, and it's just like, that's too much information. Let's just keep it simple.
Yeah.
I think that's why I say that, is because they're trying to process. They're still there. After time, we get it, but they're not going to get it. You just, hey, just call someone.
Yeah.
Let's go from there.
In fact, like, if I look back at early sobriety, like, I remember going to meetings and people were talking about inventory, and they were talking about amends, and they were talking about all of this stuff, and they were just tossing around these words. I had no idea what they were talking about. And I'm like, are they all reading a book I should be reading? Oh yeah, they are. Point being is that I didn't know, and it was all confusing, and I kind of felt like I wasn't getting it, which led to the whole like self-loathing cycle again. So yeah, no need. Just chill, man. Be cool. Just go through it, and then it makes sense for me. Maybe I'm just somebody who has to do it first. I think I am.
Well, I'm glad our paths have crossed, because you, I mean, we haven't really talked, really. I mean, yeah, we see each other in these meetings, and you've been there for a good majority of the ones I've been to, because you did mention, oh my God, which we will link in the show notes.
Yeah.
I will also link Jeffrey Munn's book. I have read that. I worked the Reason and Recovery steps, which is, that worked well for me. But I forgot which point I was going for this on this. Oh, yeah. But like, I haven't ever had a, really chance to sit down and just like talk to you. And that's why I like doing this, because this is selfish, but this automatically brings other people into my recovery. Then by doing that and putting this out into however we want to word this, just, this podcast format, then you and me talk, and then someone else listens, then they're like, another version of you is going to hear this and relate. Don't know when.
Right. But wait, I'm chronically unique. You don't know this. No one's like me.
Me too. Me too.
It's great. Actually, it's funny because I am coming onto this call with you. I was like, it's weird. Like, I feel like I know Raymond because I've been listening to all of your episodes. So like, I feel like I know you, but like, you only know me from the shares. So I'm like, hey buddy, how's it going? And you're like, hey.
Well, that's the other thing, there's I've had people I've never met in any of these meetings in here, and it's just wherever it goes, and that's I try to explain to people that's never heard the show, and I get referrals for the show to have someone on here, and I try to explain it to them. I'm like, look, it's like an open format. It goes wherever it goes. We're here to talk about recovery. We're here to talk about the paths of recovery for that relation. And then, this is what it turns into. Which, damn it, you're not so unique.
Wow. I want to be special.
You are special. Oh. You are special.
We're all special.
Because it's like you brought up earlier about that first traditional AA meeting you went to, and saying the happy, shiny serene person. I believe the first time I went to, oh my God, you were that happy, shiny, serene person. You know, we're not that all the time. I mean, things happen and whatever, but that's my first recollection. And I think you were doing service at the time for them. It was either chips or something like that. And it's just
Probably.
like,
Yeah.
I'm like, how the hell is she so happy? I'm like, and those are my thoughts sometimes. The people, some of the people doing service, I'm like, how? I don't get it. I was miserable, and I'm like, how do you get this happy?
Yeah,
and project this way, and the one thing I've started understanding is everything doesn't have to be a nightmare tale or whatever for it to convey a message either. And it's just like, it's showing that person hope. And that's the other thing you brought up. And it's just, I think you brought that here today. I think that's the message you're spreading today, and it's showing. And you put a great big smile on my face today, like you always do. When I see every time you pop in a room, it just puts a smile on my face because you're 99.621%. You're smiling. I just made that number up, by the way, but
pretty good odds.
Yeah, I think you've been a huge role and a huge impact on people's lives, and you may not know it. And I think that's when we go into these rooms, you may be impacting someone. So that's the message I want to convey, you know.
Yeah.
It's because we can't do this alone. I had it wrapped in my head when I originally came to AA. I did this to appease someone, and it wasn't for my sobriety. I was going to do this to save a marriage and all this other stuff.
Yep.
And, you know, happily ever after. I do this, everything fixes. Well, today is day 303.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm still doing this. I came into the rooms after day 60.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of things have changed and perceptions and all that. And that's the other thing. I took this seriously, and I keep doing this.
I remember your first meeting. I do. Well, it's just that it's amazing, and I love. And this is something that you only get when you're in the program for a while. Is that when you see somebody who's like just right behind you in sobriety, like it's almost like you're in third grade and they're in first grade, but you get to like see them like, okay, now you're going to learn about this, and now you're going to learn about that, and now this part is going to start going better for you, and things are going to get, I don't know, just seeing like how, for lack of a better word, how broken you felt at the time, and how people now look to you, you know, as like a solid foundation. And that transformation has been just really inspiring to watch. So thank you for that.
That's funny you said that, 'cause someone said I impact people's life, the kind of what I just said to you. And I question that. And I'm just like, well, that's what I'm trying to do. And they're just like, no, you do. And I'm just like, Okay, I need to buckle down and get some more shows recorded. We got to keep this boat afloat. Then I started making other phone calls, and it really made me actually start making more phone calls to other alcoholics, and it gives me more ideas on how the alcoholic community, what other ways we can get it put out there to help others. And it's got some ideas going on in my head, but they're helpful ideas. It's not destructive. Hey, this plan's going to do this, and it's going to be really cool, and something's going to end up on fire plans. This is something constructive, creative, and helpful.
A good risk.
Yes, it's a good risk.
Not even a risk. A good adventure.
Yeah. Adventure, journey, escapade, whatever you want to call it.
Escapade. I love that word.
And I don't know. I'm going to reach out to you after the show for this and get your input on it too. Because, you were there. You were there in that first meeting. That's wow. And now you're on the Many Paths Sobriety podcast with me.
Look at us now.
Yeah, it's wow. It's really sinking in now, and I'm getting lost for words, and it reminds me about like how you said you want to be like your sponsor. And it took me a while to get that realization. Like my sponsor has 36 years of sobriety. I'm nearing 10 months. For me to get to that point, it's just continuing to do this and being able to word it from our viewpoint. Because it's what they know, they've learned from other alcoholics and from their sponsor. And then over time, someone will say, I want to be like EJ. I want to be able to do what she's doing and what she's saying and how she's helping people. And it took me a while to realize that, because I'm like, I don't like the way I share. I sound stupid. I sound this. I sound that. Screw it. I'm going to say whatever I say. I'm going to say whatever comes out of my mouth. Sometimes I say things, it just comes out, and it's what it's about. I can't just formulate this stuff.
Like no one's ever shared in a meeting and I've been like, that was stupid. Like that's never happened in all the meetings I've been to.
You texted me last night. Really you were like, Ray, that's a horrible share last night. And I was like,
worst share ever. You're fired from me.
No, I'm just, it's just like, I think that's one of my flaws. It's just like, I don't want to sound stupid, but it doesn't matter what I think. It's just getting it out. You got to get it out.
And you don't sound stupid. So, let that go.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you. This has been fun.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, yeah, everyone, that's EJ.